Commander stood at the entrance of the Seoul Military Academy and tried not to show his doubt. The building looked ordinary, too ordinary. He had expected something more from the species that claimed to be warriors. Was a proud member of the reptilian race that had conquered 12 star systems through pure strategy and intelligence. His scales were dark green, polished to military perfection. His uniform carried 17 medals of honor. He had fought in 6 wars and never lost a single battle. When the Galactic Coalition announced the military exchange program, had volunteered immediately. He wanted to see what these humans were capable of. The answer, he suspected, was not much. Humans had only joined the coalition 5 years ago. They were new to space travel, new to galactic politics, and certainly new to real warfare. The galaxy had been at peace for 200 years. Wars were now fought through simulations and negotiations. Nobody actually died anymore. It was civilized. It was logical. Believed humans would be soft. They looked soft. They had no scales, no natural armor, no claws. Their skin was pink and vulnerable. They smiled all the time, showing their flat teeth. What kind of predator smiled? Commander, a human voice broke his thoughts. Turned to see a human male in uniform approaching. The man was shorter than, with dark hair cut very short. His face showed no emotion. His eyes were hard. "I am Captain," the human said. "I will be your primary contact during your stay. Welcome to Shadow Company." Studied the human. Captain wore a simple uniform with only 3 medals. Yet something about the man's posture, the way he held himself, made pause. This was not a soft creature. "Thank you," Captain said. "I am honored to observe your training methods." Captain's mouth moved slightly. It might have been a smile, but there was no warmth in it. "Follow me. Training begins in 10 minutes." As they walked through the facility, saw dozens of human cadets. They all looked young, maybe 20 Earth years old. They moved in groups, talking and laughing. So casual, so undisciplined. Made a mental note for his report. They entered a large room where about 30 cadets were gathering. Captain gestured to a spot where could observe. "This is Shadow Company," explained. "Our elite training unit. These cadets have already completed 2 years of basic training. They are here to become special operations soldiers." A young human woman approached. She had long dark hair tied back and wore the same uniform as the others. She smiled and he noticed her teeth were very white. "Commander, this is Lieutenant," Captain said. "She handles tactical training." "Welcome," said cheerfully. "We're excited to have you here. I hope our methods don't bore you." Didn't understand the comment. Bore him. He was here to evaluate human military capability. How could that be boring? "I am certain I will find it educational," replied carefully. Lieutenant's smile grew wider. There was something in her eyes that couldn't identify. It made him uncomfortable. Captain called the cadets to attention. They formed neat lines instantly. The laughing and talking stopped. Their faces became serious. The transformation was sudden and complete. "Today we have a guest," announced. "Commander of the Empire. He will be observing our training for the next month. Treat him with respect. Show him what Shadow Company represents." "Sir, yes, sir," the cadets shouted in unison. The sound was loud and sharp. Inner eyelid blinked in surprise. These soft-looking creatures had strong voices. Captain pointed to 3 cadets in the front row. "Commander, let me introduce some of our top performers. This is Cadet." A young man with a thin face stepped forward slightly. He looked completely average, nothing special about him at all. "Cadet." A small woman, shorter than the others, with a quiet face. She barely moved. "And Cadet Minu." A larger male, muscular but not unusually so. He had a scar on his left cheek. These were the best. Tried not to feel disappointed. They looked like children playing soldier. "We'll start with morning conditioning," Captain said. "Standard routine." The cadets moved outside to a large field, followed with the 2 officers. The morning air was cold. Scales adjusted to the temperature automatically. He noticed the humans were only wearing thin clothing, but they didn't seem bothered by the cold. 10-kilometer run, Lieutenant called out. Standard pace, begin. The cadets started running, watched them circle the track. 10 kilometers was not far. A soldier could sprint that distance in 20 minutes if necessary, but sprinting was different from sustained running. The body was not built for long endurance. After 10 minutes, expected the humans to slow down. They didn't. They maintained the same steady pace. After 20 minutes, they were still running, still the same pace. How long will they run? Asked Captain. Until they finish the 10 kilometers, replied simply. And how long does that take? About 45 minutes. Crest rose slightly in surprise. They run for 45 minutes, without stopping. This is the easy morning run, Lieutenant said. Her tone was casual. The real training starts after this. Watch the cadets complete their run. Not one of them stopped. Not one fell behind. When they finished, they were breathing hard and sweating, but they immediately formed lines again. Water break, Captain announced. 5 minutes. The cadets drank from bottles and wiped their faces. Some were still smiling and talking to each other. They had just run for 45 minutes and they were smiling. Next exercise, Lieutenant called out. Combat drills, partner up. The cadets formed pairs and began hand-to-hand combat practice, moved closer to watch. The movements were fast and brutal. These were not gentle practice moves. They were striking each other with real force. Cadet blocked a punch from his partner and countered with an elbow strike. The impact was solid. The other cadet staggered but immediately came back with a leg sweep, hit the ground hard, heard the impact. That had to hurt. But Rold stood up and continued fighting. No complaint, no pause. Watched Cadet, the small, quiet female. She was fighting a male cadet twice her size. She moved like water, fast and smooth. When the large male grabbed her, she twisted in a way that looked painful and threw him to the ground. The male landed hard on his back. Again, the male said, standing up. There was respect in his voice. They continued for 30 minutes. Real fighting, real impacts, real pain, but nobody stopped. Nobody complained. When the drill ended, saw several cadets had bloody noses. One had a swelling eye. Cadet Minu was limping slightly, but they all formed lines again, standing straight, waiting for the next order. Dismissed for breakfast, Captain said. Report back in 1 hour for tactical studies. The cadets dispersed. The transformation happened again. They went from serious soldiers to casual young people in seconds, laughing, talking, helping the injured ones walk. Stood very still. His mind was processing what he had seen. These humans had just run for 45 minutes, fought each other for 30 minutes, and now they were acting like it was a normal morning. What did you think, Commander? Lieutenant asked. That strange smile was on her face again. It was interesting, said carefully. This was the easy part, Captain said. His voice was flat, emotionless. Tomorrow we start the real training. Felt something he hadn't felt in many years. It was small, just a tiny sensation in his chest. It took him a moment to identify it. It was fear. He looked at Captain's hard eyes, at Lieutenant's smile, at the cadets walking away, laughing despite their injuries. These humans didn't know they should be soft. Nobody had told them they were supposed to be weak. And that, realized, might be a very big problem. For the Galactic Coalition, for the Empire, for everyone who thought humans were just another species to add to the Alliance. These creatures were something different. Pulled out his data pad and began writing his first report. His clawed fingers moved slowly, carefully choosing words. Day 1, he typed. Initial observations concerning human military training, further study required. He paused, then added one more line. Physical capabilities exceed expectations. Recommend caution. It was diplomatic, It was professional. It didn't say what he was really thinking. Which was, what have we invited into our galaxy? The second week began with what Captain called distance training. Learned quickly that human language often made terrible things sound pleasant. Today's exercise is a 30-kilometer run, Lieutenant announced to the assembled cadets. Full gear, 4 hours maximum time, weather conditions hot and humid. Checked his data pad. The temperature was 32 degrees Celsius. The humidity was 80%. These were not ideal conditions for physical exertion. The military would delay training on such a day. "Sir, yes, sir," the cadets responded. They strapped on heavy packs, estimated each pack weighed at least 20 kilograms. Then they formed up and began running. Followed in a transport vehicle with Captain. The vehicle had cooling systems, was grateful for this. Even with his scales, the heat was uncomfortable. The humans ran and ran and ran. After 1 hour, saw the first signs of distress. Several cadets were breathing very hard. Their faces were red and covered in sweat. Their clothing was soaked through. "Should they not rest?" asked Captain. "They'll rest when they finish," replied. His eyes never left the running cadets. At the 90-minute mark, Cadet Myra stumbled. She was a thin female with short hair. Her legs seemed to give out. She fell to her knees. Sat up, she has collapsed. The exercise should stop. But Captain was already out of the vehicle. Lieutenant ran from another vehicle carrying medical supplies. They reached Myra quickly. The other cadets kept running. They looked at Myra as they passed, but they didn't stop. Exited the vehicle and approached carefully. Lieutenant was checking Myra's vital signs while Captain held her upright. "Heat exhaustion," said. "Not critical, she pushed too hard." "I can finish," Myra said. Her voice was weak. "I can finish, sir." "You collapsed," Captain said flatly. "You're done." "Please," Myra said, her desperation in her voice. "Don't remove me from training. I can do this." Lieutenant set up an IV line with practiced efficiency. Clear fluid began flowing into Myra's arm. "You have 2 choices," Captain said. "Go to medical now or sit here for 30 minutes with the IV, then continue at walking pace. You will not run, you will not push. You will walk. Understand?" "Yes, sir," Myra said. "I'll walk, I'll finish." Stared at this exchange. The human had collapsed from physical exhaustion. Her body had shut down, and she wanted to continue. They waited. Myra sat in the shade of the vehicle, the IV in her arm. She drank water. She ate something from a ration pack. Her color improved slightly. After 30 minutes exactly, Lieutenant removed the IV. "Slow walking pace," she ordered. "If you feel dizzy, you stop immediately. A medic will follow you." Myra stood. Her legs shook, but she stood. "Thank you, sir." She began walking, not running, walking, but she was continuing. Watched her walk away. "Why does she do this?" he asked Captain. "Because she wants to be a soldier," replied simply. But she collapsed. Her body failed. "Her body got tired," corrected. "There's a difference. Bodies get tired. That's normal. What matters is what you do when your body says stop." They returned to the vehicle and continued following the cadets. All of them finished. Even Myra, walking slowly, crossed the finish line. It took her 5 hours total, but she finished. The cadets were exhausted. They lay on the ground, breathing hard, but noticed something strange. They were smiling. Some were laughing. Cadet Myra had tears running down her face, but she was smiling. "Why are they happy?" asked Lieutenant. "They are clearly in pain." Looked at him with that unsettling smile. "Because they did something hard. Humans like doing hard things. It makes us feel alive." This made no logical sense to. Pain was bad. Exhaustion was bad. These things should be avoided, but humans seemed to seek them out. The next day brought more confusion. Was told they would begin Hell Week. This was apparently a training tradition. 5 days, Captain explained. 4 hours of sleep total, not per night, total for all 5 days. Crest rose in alarm. 4 hours of sleep in 5 days. This will damage their cognitive function severely. Yes, agreed. That's the point. We need to see how they perform when their brains are shutting down. The week was terrible to observe. The cadets ran exercises, conducted training, and performed complex tasks while barely conscious. By day 3, saw Cadet Sung walking into walls. The young man's eyes were open, but he wasn't seeing properly. Cadet Sung, Lieutenant said sharply, navigation drill, get to checkpoint 7. Sung blinked slowly. It took him 5 seconds to respond. Yes, sir. His words were slurred. He pulled out a map. His hands shook. He stared at the map for a long time, too long. Could see the cadet was barely processing the information. But Sung found checkpoint 7. It took him longer than normal, and he stumbled several times, but he found it. On day 4, Cadet began hallucinating. He started talking to someone who wasn't there. Lieutenant approached him calmly. Cadet, who are you talking to? Blinked at her. My sister, sir, she's... Wait, he looked around, confused. She's not here, I'm sorry, sir, I'm very tired. I know you are, said, not unkindly. Can you complete your mission objective? Straightened up, with visible effort he focused. Yes, sir, I can do it. And he did. Hallucinating, exhausted beyond reason, barely able to stand, he completed his objective. Pulled Captain aside. This is dangerous, you are damaging them. We're training them, corrected. In real combat, the enemy won't let you sleep. You don't get to say, time out, I'm tired. You fight until you win or you die. We need soldiers who can fight when their body is screaming at them to shut down. But this is not real combat, protested. This is training. You could do this more gradually. Captain looked at with those hard, empty eyes. Commander, let me ask you something. How many hours can a soldier fight without sleep before they become ineffective? Considered, perhaps 20 hours at maximum efficiency, 30 hours with reduced function. Our soldiers need to fight for 72 hours or more, said. We're not built as strong as your species. We're not built as tough. So we train to break our limits. We train to keep going when everything says stop. On day 5, Hell Week ended. The cadets were released to sleep, expected them to collapse immediately. Some did, but others stayed awake longer, eating, showering, talking quietly, as if they were too tired to sleep. Cadet sat alone, staring at nothing, approached her carefully. Cadet, are you well? Looked up slowly. Her eyes were bloodshot and hollow. Yes, sir, just tired. Why do you endure this training? Asked. He genuinely wanted to understand. Thought about this for a long moment. Because someday I might need to. Someday someone might need me to keep going when I want to quit. My team, my squad, maybe civilians who need protection. I need to know I can do it. But you might never need this skill, said. Maybe, agreed. But if I do need it and I can't do it, people die. So I'd rather train too hard than not hard enough. The next week brought weapons training. But first, there was hand-to-hand combat practice. Had seen this before, but today seemed more intense. Cadet was sparring with Cadet Wu. They were both skilled fighters. The exchange was fast and brutal. Then heard a sound he recognized, the crack of breaking bone. Gasped and stepped back. He held his side. His face showed pain. Stop, Lieutenant called. She examined quickly. 2 broken ribs, probably 3. Medical facility now. Sir, I can continue, said through gritted teeth. You have broken ribs, said shocked. You cannot continue. But Lieutenant was pulling out medical supplies. She wrapped his chest tightly with some kind of supportive bandage. This will stabilize you, she said. You can continue training, but no more hand-to-hand today. Weapons drills only. Don't make it worse. Nodded, thank you, sir. He returned to training with broken ribs. He held his rifle. He ran target drills. He moved slower and could see pain in every movement, but he continued. That evening, found Lieutenant in the officers' break room. "I must ask," said, "why did you let Cadet continue training with broken ribs?" Sipped her coffee. "Because broken ribs won't kill you. They hurt like hell, but you can function. In real combat, he might break ribs and still need to fight. Better to learn how to handle it now in a controlled situation." "You said you once completed a mission with a punctured lung," said, remembering her comment from his first day. "Oh, that," laughed. "Yeah, that wasn't fun. Took a piece of shrapnel during the conflict, punctured my left lung, but my squad was pinned down. I was the only one with the medical training to help them, so I did." "How did you breathe?" asked, horrified. "Very carefully," said with that terrible smile. "And I didn't talk much. Talking was hard, but I could still move, still think. So I patched up my squad called for and then let the medics fix me up properly." "This is insane," said quietly. "Maybe," agreed. "Or maybe it's just human. We're stubborn. We don't like to quit. Our bodies are weak compared to a lot of species. We're not as strong as you, not as tough, but we can endure. We can push through. That's our advantage." Returned to his quarters that night and wrote his report. "Human pain tolerance is not normal," he typed. "They treat injuries as inconveniences rather than disabling conditions. They continue functioning with damage that would incapacitate a soldier. Their endurance is not scientifically possible based on their physiology, yet they demonstrate it repeatedly." He paused, then added, "I believe they have conditioned themselves to ignore their body's survival signals. This is either remarkable training or species-wide insanity, possibly both." Saved the report and lay down. He needed 9 hours of sleep. His body required it. He couldn't function without it. The humans in the next building were probably sleeping 4 hours and calling it a good night. For the first time in his military career, Commander felt inadequate. These soft, weak, fragile creatures were somehow stronger than him in all the ways that mattered. And that was truly terrifying. The third week brought tactical training and thought he would finally see something familiar. Strategy was about logic, mathematics, probability. The Empire had perfected this over 2,000 years. Was wrong. Captain led him into a room filled with holographic displays. 20 cadets sat at stations, divided into 2 teams. This was a war game simulation. "Red team and blue team," explained. "Red team has superior numbers and defensive position. Blue team is surrounded. Mathematically, blue team should surrender. Let's see what happens." Cadet was leading blue team. He studied the holographic map silently. His team was surrounded by red team forces. The numbers were not favorable, 3-to-1 odds, low ammunition, no reinforcements coming. In military doctrine, this was a clear surrender situation. Honor could be preserved. Lives could be saved. "Red team is giving you 1 chance to surrender," the instructor announced. "Respond." Expected to accept. Any logical commander would. Smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Tell red team to come take it." The simulation began. Blue team was supposed to lose, had calculated it himself, but Cadet did something unexpected. First, he ordered his team to fake a reactor meltdown in their base. The reactor wasn't actually damaged, but the energy signatures looked real. Red team sensors detected the apparent meltdown and pulled back their closest forces. "That is a lie," said. "That is deception." "That's tactics," Lieutenant corrected, standing beside him. While Red Team was reacting to the false meltdown, Blue Team evacuated their base. But they left something behind. Bodies, or rather body-shaped objects with heat signatures. Decoys. Red Team sent scouts. The scouts reported Blue Team casualties. Red Team moved in carefully, expecting a trap. They were right. Blue Team had rigged their entire ammunition supply to explode. When Red Team entered the base, everything detonated. Red Team lost 30% of their forces instantly. They destroyed their own supplies, said Stunned. Now they have no ammunition. Keep watching, said. Blue team had saved just enough ammunition for one more trick. They scattered their forces and began hit-and-run attacks, small strikes, quick retreats. They didn't try to win fights. They just tried to make red team afraid. Cadet, one of blue team's members, was captured in the simulation. Expected her to surrender and exit the game. Instead, she told red team that blue team had biological weapons. Another lie. Blue team had no such weapons, but red team didn't know that. They started using decontamination protocols. Their movement slowed. Their confidence wavered. Blue team attacked during the decontamination. Fast, brutal. They lost more soldiers, but they made red team panic. In the end, blue team lost by numbers. But red team had suffered so many casualties and so much psychological damage that they refused to advance for the final attack. They waited for blue team to run out of resources. Tactical draw, the instructor announced. Blue team successfully made victory too costly. Red team achieved nothing despite superior numbers. Cadet stood up and shook hands with the red team leader. They were both smiling. The battle had been vicious, deceptive, and brutal. Now they were friends again. Tried to process what he'd seen. This was chaos. This was not logical warfare. Exactly, Captain said. Rule 1, there are no rules. Rule 2, make them afraid of what you'll do next. Humans don't fight by logic. We fight by making the enemy too scared to fight us. That evening, there was a tactical psychology lecture. Attended, curious about what humans considered psychology. The instructor was a calm woman named Major. She had gray hair and kind eyes. She looked like someone's grandmother, not a military strategist. Tonight we discuss the human advantage, Major began. Other species are stronger, faster, tougher, so what do we have? Cadet Minu raised his hand. Creativity, sir. Correct. We can imagine things that haven't happened yet. We can plan for situations we've never seen. We can create solutions that don't exist. She brought up images of historical battles, recognized none of them. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years, Major continued. We learned every dirty trick, every psychological weapon, every way to break an enemy's will. Now we take that knowledge to space. She showed a battle where human soldiers were vastly outnumbered. Instead of fighting, they surrendered. The enemy took them prisoner. Then, during transport, the prisoners escaped, stole enemy equipment, and attacked from behind. Use the enemy's expectations against them, Major said. They expect prisoners to stay prisoners, so don't. Another battle showed humans pretending to retreat. The enemy chased them. The humans led them into a trap. Look weak when you're strong, Major said. Act defeated when you're planning victory. Raised his hand. Major, this is all deception. This is dishonorable. Major looked at him with those kind, grandmother eyes. Commander, do you know what honor gets you in war? Respect, said. Legacy, historical recognition. Dead, Major said simply. Honor gets you dead. We're not here to be honorable. We're here to win. We're here to protect our people, and we'll lie, cheat, and deceive to do it. The cadets nodded. This was normal to them. This was how they thought. But Major continued, we never deceive our own. We never betray our team. That's where human psychology becomes our greatest weapon. She brought up videos of human soldiers in combat, real combat from the conflict. Watched a soldier drag his wounded teammate to safety while under fire. The soldier was hit twice but kept moving, kept pulling his teammate, saved him. Humans bond, Major explained. We form emotional connections that override logic. This soldier had a 20% chance of survival if he attempted the rescue, but he did it anyway. Want to know why? Nobody answered, they all knew. Because that's his brother. Not by blood, by choice, by shared experience. Humans will die for each other. This is not logical. This is not strategic, but it's our greatest strength. She showed more videos. Medics running through fire to reach wounded soldiers. Pilots ramming enemy ships when out of ammunition. Soldiers holding positions long after they should have retreated. We call these last stands, Major said. Situations where retreat is logical but we don't retreat. We fight until we can't fight anymore. Sometimes we lose, but we make the enemy pay for every meter of ground. Felt cold. He had learned about human history. He knew they had fought brutal wars among themselves, but seeing it presented as military doctrine was different. What if you cannot win? Asked. What if victory is mathematically impossible? Then we make defeat impossible too, Major said. We make the enemy's victory so costly, so bloody, so painful that they regret ever fighting us. Better to negotiate than to defeat humans completely, because we don't stop. After the lecture, approached Captain, this is madness. You train your soldiers to ignore survival instinct. No, corrected. We train them to value something more than survival, purpose, duty, each other. That night the cadets gathered in the common room. This was their free time, observed from a distance. They told stories, old stories about historical battles, ancient Earth battles before humans went to space. Cadet Wu told a story about something called Thermopylae. 300 soldiers held a narrow pass against an army of thousands. They knew they would die. They went anyway. They fought for 3 days before falling. They lost, Cadet Sola said, but they gave their allies time to prepare. Their death had meaning. Cadet Jinnah told a story about pilots who crashed their planes into enemy ships on purpose during something called World War II. They called these pilots kamikaze. They were desperate, Jinnah explained. Their nation was losing, so they turned themselves into weapons. One plane, one life, one enemy ship destroyed. Was horrified. They killed themselves deliberately. Yes, Jinnah said. It's controversial. Even among humans, we debate whether it was brave or wasteful, but it shows what humans are capable of when we believe in something. The stories continued. Soldiers who held bunkers alone against waves of enemies, medics who refused to leave wounded men behind, commanders who went down with their ships rather than abandon their crews. Why do you celebrate these deaths? Asked. These people failed, they died. Cadet looked at seriously. They didn't fail, Commander. They succeeded at what they set out to do. Maybe they didn't survive, but they accomplished their mission. They protected someone. They bought time. They sent a message. Death isn't failure if it means something. His mind struggled with this concept. In culture, death in battle was tragedy. It was the worst outcome. You fought to survive. You calculated odds. You preserved life. Humans fought to win. If that meant dying, they died. Simple as that. Do you fear death? Asked Cadet, who had been silent. She thought about this. Yes, I don't want to die. I have family, friends, things I want to do. But if I'm in a situation where someone has to die and my death means others live, I'll choose to die. Not because I'm brave, but because that's what soldiers do. We put ourselves between danger and the people who can't fight. This is not logical, said. No, agreed, it's human. Later witnessed something that made everything click into place. During a training exercise, Cadet Wu was supposed to complete an obstacle course. The course was timed. Speed mattered for the score. Halfway through, Cadet Jinnah fell from a climbing wall. She landed badly. Her ankle twisted. She cried out in pain. Wu stopped. He had good time. He could finish with a high score, but he stopped. He went back to Jinnah. He helped her up. He supported her weight and helped her complete the course. They finished last. Their scores were terrible, but nobody criticized them. Later asked Captain about this. Cadet Wu sacrificed his score. This will affect his ranking. Yes, agreed. But he did the right thing. We don't train soldiers to win training exercises. We train them to be the kind of people who help their teammates. Scores don't matter if you're not someone your team can trust. Understood then. Human military training wasn't about creating the strongest individual soldiers. It was about creating bonds, creating trust, creating a pack. Alone, a human was weak, soft, vulnerable, but humans were never alone. They formed groups, teams, packs, and those packs would fight to the death for each other. You weaponize emotion, said to Lieutenant. We channel it, corrected. Emotions make us human, fear makes us careful, anger makes us fierce, love makes us protective. We don't ignore our emotions, we use them. That night wrote his longest report yet. Human military doctrine is based on psychological warfare, both external and internal. They deceive enemies without hesitation. They form emotional bonds that override survival instinct. They view death as acceptable if it serves a purpose. This is not how other species fight. This is uniquely human. He paused, thinking about all the stories, all the training, all the demonstrations of human psychology. Recommendation: do not engage humans in prolonged conflict. Their strategy is not to win quickly but to make winning too costly. They will sacrifice themselves to make you regret fighting them. They do not calculate survival probability. They calculate meaning. This makes them unpredictable and extremely dangerous. Saved the report and looked out his window. In the common room below, he could see the cadets laughing together. They had trained brutally all day. Tomorrow would be brutal too, but tonight they were happy. They had each other. Realized he had no one. Soldiers didn't form bonds like this. They respected each other professionally. But love, trust, willingness to die for each other. No, the way was survival, logic, self-preservation. Maybe that was why they had never faced an enemy like humans. Because humans didn't fight to survive. They fought for each other. And that was learning, was the most dangerous motivation in the galaxy. The final week arrived. Had spent a month observing Shadow Company. He had written detailed reports. He had documented human training methods, psychology, and capabilities. Now came the ultimate test. Captain called it the final exercise. A full-scale war game simulation. Real tactics, real strategies, everything except real bullets. You'll command the opposing force, told. Coalition military doctrine. Full strategic authority. We've brought in 50 soldiers from your ship to serve as your troops. You'll face Shadow Company, 30 human cadets. Felt relief. Finally something he understood, actual warfare, strategy, numbers. The odds were in his favor. 50 trained soldiers against 30 human cadets. His forces would have the defensive position, better equipment, superior numbers. The war game would take place in a large training zone in the mountains. Real terrain, real weather. The only thing simulated was the weapons. Laser tag technology, Captain called it. When you were hit, your suit registered it. Get hit enough times, you were dead and out of the game. Spent the first day planning. He knew tactical doctrine by heart. He positioned his forces well. Good defensive positions, clear fields of fire, logical supply lines, multiple fallback positions. Shadow Company would attack. They had to. They were outnumbered and had no fortified position. They would need to assault his position. Calculated a 70% probability that the humans would take massive casualties and surrender within the first 12 hours. The exercise began at dawn. For the first hour, nothing happened. Sensors showed no movement, no attacks, no probes, nothing. What are they doing? One of his lieutenants asked. Planning, said. Let them plan. Time works in our favor. At hour 2, a single human soldier appeared on the perimeter sensors, very far out, just at the edge of detection range. One soldier, the lieutenant said. This makes no sense. Studied the sensor data. The soldier wasn't moving, just sitting in one position. Reconnaissance, he decided. Ignore it. One soldier cannot harm us. The soldier remained there. Hours passed. Hour 3, hour 4, hour 5. The human didn't move. "Should we not eliminate the scout?" the lieutenant asked. "Waste of resources," said. "They're just watching, let them watch." At hour 8 the human moved, one shot. Second-in-command's suit lit up, dead. The commander had been eliminated. "How?" the commander protested. "I was inside the perimeter. That was over a kilometer distance." Check the data. Cadet, the small, quiet female. She had sat in one position for 8 hours without moving, without eating, without even adjusting her position, just waiting, waiting for the perfect shot. Soldiers could not do this. 8 hours without moving, impossible, the body wouldn't allow it. "Respond," ordered, "eliminate the sniper." But was already gone. By the time his soldiers reached her position, she had vanished. Hour 12 arrived. No major attack yet, just small probing actions. A pair of humans appeared here, took a few shots, disappeared. Another pair hit a different section of the perimeter. Forces were on high alert, constantly watching, constantly ready. At hour 20, realized the problem. His soldiers were exhausted, required regular rest. They had been on high alert for 20 hours. They needed to sleep soon. "Rotate shifts," ordered. "Half the force rests, half remains on watch." But his forces couldn't relax. Every few hours, humans would probe another section, just enough to keep everyone awake, keep everyone nervous. At hour 24, sensors detected a large human force moving toward a supply convoy, had prepared for this. The convoy was protected, but more importantly, the convoy was a trap. The cargo trucks were rigged with sensors and tracking technology. The humans attacked the convoy. They used explosives. They fought hard. They lost 3 soldiers but destroyed the convoy. "Excellent," said. "Now we know where they are, we can track them." Except the convoy exploded. Really exploded. The entire supply depot detonated. Massive fireball. Every sensor in range was blinded by the thermal signature. "What happened?" the lieutenant demanded. Captain's voice came over the communication channel. "Your convoy was rigged to explode after we hijacked it. We knew it was a trap, so we turned your trap into our trap. Also, we now know all your sensor frequencies. Thank you for that." Stared at the tactical display. The humans had known about the trap. They had attacked anyway. They had lost soldiers deliberately just to steal the convoy and use it as a weapon. "This is chaos," the lieutenant said. "This is not proper warfare." "This is human warfare," replied quietly. Hour 30 arrived. Forces were tired, very tired, but the humans kept probing. Small attacks, just enough to keep everyone awake, keep everyone stressed. "Sir, the soldiers need rest," the lieutenant said. "We have been on alert for 30 hours. Physiology requires sleep." "I know," said. His own eyes felt heavy. "But if we sleep, they will attack." "Then let them attack. We have superior position." Considered this. It was logical. His forces were dug in. The humans would need to assault directly. That would be costly for them. "All forces, 6-hour rest period," ordered. "Minimum watch only, everyone else sleeps." His soldiers collapsed into their sleeping bags. Exhaustion claimed them instantly. At hour 31, the humans attacked. Not where expected, not at the main defenses. They attacked the weakest point, the supply area, with overwhelming force. And they didn't attack quietly. They attacked loud, explosions, gunfire, shouting. Soldiers woke up instantly. Confusion, panic. They had been deep asleep 1 second, in combat the next. Humans trained for this. The sleep deprivation, the sudden wake-ups, the immediate transition from rest to combat. Did not. Forces responded slowly, too slowly. By the time they were organized, the humans had destroyed most of the supplies and vanished back into the mountains. "Casualty report," demanded. "We lost 12 soldiers," the lieutenant said. "The humans lost 4. Studied the battle data. The humans had attacked at exactly the moment his forces were most vulnerable. The timing was perfect, too perfect. They planned this, said. They knew we would need sleep. They waited for it. Hour 36. Command post received a message. It was from Captain. Commander, you are surrounded. You have fought well. I offer you honorable surrender. Your soldiers are tired. You have limited supplies. There is no shame in surrender. Checked his sensors. Captain was not lying. Human forces had moved into position during the chaos. They surrounded his command post. But still had more soldiers. He still had defensive advantage. The humans would need to assault directly. We do not surrender, replied. If you want this position, come take it. There was a long pause, then Lieutenant's voice came through. As you wish, Commander. At hour 38, the assault began. Expected a careful, methodical attack, standard assault tactics. The humans charged, direct assault, no hesitation. It made no strategic sense. They would take heavy casualties, but they came anyway. Cadet led the charge. He was hit twice. His suit registered the hits, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop in this simulation. The suits only registered hits. But the point was, he kept advancing despite being marked as wounded. Cadet Minu charged through an obvious kill zone. He was hit 4 times, technically dead. But he reached the defensive wall and threw a simulated grenade before his suit locked up. The grenades were simulated, but the tactics were real. If this had been real combat, Minu would have died, but he would have taken soldiers with him. The humans kept coming, wave after wave. They took casualties, they didn't care, they just kept coming. And they came at 3 in the morning, the worst possible time. Soldiers were exhausted, they had been awake too long, their response time was slow. The humans trained for this. They trained to fight in the worst conditions, when tired, when hurt, when everything was terrible. This was their advantage. At hour 40, forces broke, not because they lost militarily, but because his soldiers were terrified. These humans didn't stop, didn't slow, didn't show fear. They fought like machines, like creatures that felt no pain, no fear, no exhaustion. They're not normal, one soldier said. They're not right, something is wrong with them. They're human, said quietly. This is what humans are. At hour 42 gave the order, we surrender. His soldiers looked relieved. They had fought well. But fighting humans was not like fighting other species. It was psychological torture. The simulation ended, lights came on, suits unlocked. Expected the humans to be aggressive, victorious, arrogant. Instead, Cadet approached with his hand extended. Good battle, Commander. You had excellent defensive positions. We took heavy casualties. Took the hand, human handshake custom. You won. Barely, said. If you had 5 more soldiers or if we had attacked 6 hours later, you would have stopped us. It was close. It hadn't felt close. It had felt inevitable. The humans moved among soldiers, shaking hands, sharing water, talking about the battle like it was a sporting event. The transformation was instant. One moment they were terrifying warriors. Next moment they were friendly young people. How do you do that? Asked Lieutenant. How do you switch so completely? It's not real, said. The combat, it's training, simulation. When it's over, it's over. We don't hold grudges. We learn and move on. But in real combat, his face changed. For just a moment, saw something hard in her eyes. In real combat, we don't stop until the enemy is defeated or we're dead. But then, real combat is usually against people who want to hurt innocents. That's different. Captain approached. What did you learn, Commander? Thought about the month, the training, the endurance, the psychology, the final battle. I learned that humans are not logical opponents, said carefully. You do not fight by rules. You do not calculate odds. You simply continue until you win or until you cannot continue. That's accurate, said. Anything else? I learned that numbers do not matter against humans. Technology does not matter. Position does not matter. What matters is will, and human will is, search for the word, unbreakable. Captain nodded slowly. We're not the strongest species, Commander. We're not the fastest or the toughest, but we're the most stubborn. We don't know when to quit. Sometimes that's a weakness, but in combat, it's our greatest strength. That night there was a celebration. The cadets had completed their final training. They would graduate soon, become real soldiers. They invited to join them. He sat among them, drinking something called beer, listening to their stories. Cadet asked him, Commander, will you tell your people we're dangerous? Looked at her. This small, quiet female who had sat motionless for 8 hours just to take one shot. Yes, said honestly, I will tell them you are very dangerous. Good, said, she smiled. Maybe then no one will want to fight us. Is that the goal? Asked. To be so dangerous that no one attacks. Of course, Cadet Minu said. We don't want war. War is terrible, people die. But if war comes, we need to be so scary that it ends quickly, or never starts at all. Understood, the humans were not aggressive. They were not conquerors, but they had made themselves into something terrifying, a warning, a deterrent. Don't fight us, they seemed to say, because we will never stop, we will never surrender, we will make you regret it. Later, found himself alone with Captain on the observation deck. Your report will frighten the coalition, said. It was not a question. Yes, agreed, it will frighten them very much. Is that a problem? I do not know, said honestly. Fear can prevent war, but fear can also cause it. True, acknowledged. But here's the thing, Commander. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We don't want to conquer. We just want to be left alone to live our lives. If being scary means people leave us alone, that's fine with us. And if someone attacks anyway? Captain looked out at the stars. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard. Then they'll learn why you should never attack someone who has nothing left to lose. Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, disasters. We're survivors. We don't die easy, and we don't forget. Felt cold, he had seen human history. They had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times, but they never did. They always survived, always rebuilt, always came back. What would happen if all of humanity united against a common enemy? Decided he never wanted to find out. I will recommend peaceful relations, said, strong alliance, mutual respect. That's all we want, said. We're good allies, loyal, reliable, we just make terrible enemies. Returned to his quarters and wrote his final field notes. The exercise demonstrated everything I observed. Human victory was not through superior tactics or technology. It was through will. They pushed us until we broke, not physically. Psychologically, they made us afraid. That is the human weapon, not guns, not bombs, fear. He saved the notes and prepared his final report. Tomorrow he would return to his ship, return to the Empire, return home. But he would never forget this month, never forget Shadow Company, never forget what humans were capable of. And he would make sure the entire galaxy knew. Not as a threat, as a warning. Humans are friends you want to keep, and enemies you never want to make. Commander sat in his ship's private quarters, staring at the blank document on his screen. He had been home for 3 days now. 3 days to process everything he had seen. 3 days to find the right words. The Galactic Coalition Council was waiting for his report. They wanted to know about human military capability. They wanted facts, numbers, assessments. They wanted to know if humans were a threat or an asset. Knew his answer, but explaining it was difficult. He began typing. Classified report, Galactic Coalition Military Assessment. Subject, Human Military Capability Analysis. Author, Commander Empire. Location, Earth Seoul Military Academy. Duration, 32 days. Executive Summary. After comprehensive observation of human military training and doctrine, This officer concludes that humanity represents the most dangerous combat species currently in the Galactic Coalition. This danger stems not from superior technology or physical capability, but from psychological and behavioral factors that make humans nearly impossible to defeat through conventional warfare. Physical assessment. Human baseline physiology is unremarkable. They possess average strength, moderate speed, and fragile bodies compared to most coalition species. However, humans have developed the following capabilities through training. Endurance, Class 5 threat level. Humans can maintain physical activity for extended periods that exceed their biological design. Observed cadets ran 30 kilometers in adverse conditions. One cadet collapsed from heat exhaustion, received minimal medical care, and continued the exercise. This is not exceptional behavior among humans. This is standard. Pain tolerance, Class 4 threat level. Humans can function with injuries that would incapacitate other species. Observed one cadet continue training with broken ribs. Confirmed reports of soldiers completing missions with punctured lungs, broken limbs, and severe burns. They do not appear to process pain as a stop signal, but rather as information to be acknowledged and ignored. Sleep deprivation, Class 5 threat level. Humans can operate on minimal sleep for extended periods. Observed training exercise where cadets functioned on 4 hours of sleep over 5 days while conducting complex operations. They hallucinated. They stumbled, but they completed their objectives. In combat, humans can fight for 72 hours or more without rest. Psychological assessment. This is where human danger truly manifests. Emotional bonding, Class 6 threat level. Humans form deep emotional connections with their combat units. They call this pack bonding. Once formed, these bonds override survival instinct. Humans will die to protect pack members. This is not occasional behavior. This is expected behavior. A human soldier who abandons wounded teammates is considered worse than a dead soldier. This makes them unpredictable. Logic suggests retreat when outnumbered. Humans attack. Logic suggests surrender when surrounded. Humans fight harder because they are not fighting for themselves. They are fighting for each other. Tactical creativity, Class 5 threat level. Human warfare is based on deception, improvisation, and psychological manipulation. They do not follow standard tactical doctrine because they invented ways to counter standard doctrine while fighting themselves for thousands of years. Observed examples. Faking critical system, failures to manipulate enemy positioning. Using their own casualties as decoys. Destroying their own supplies to create traps. Deliberate sacrifices to gather intelligence. Attacking when victory is mathematically impossible, simply to inflict damage. Humans do not ask, "Can we win?" They ask, "How can we hurt them?" This mindset makes them extremely dangerous opponents. Death acceptance, Class 6 threat level. This is the most disturbing human trait. They do not view death as failure. They view death as acceptable if it serves a purpose. Humans have a historical concept called last stands. These are situations where survival is impossible, but humans fight anyway. They hold positions they cannot keep. They defend civilians they cannot save. They complete missions they will not survive. When asked why, humans explain that some things are more important than living. Honor, duty, love, protection of others. These abstract concepts override survival instinct. Tactical implication. You cannot break human morale by inflicting casualties. They expect casualties. They accept casualties. This makes standard attrition warfare useless against them. Strategic assessment. After participating in a war game exercise, this officer observed the following. Numbers are irrelevant. This officer commanded 50 soldiers against 30 human cadets. Superior position. Superior equipment. The humans won through psychological warfare and willingness to accept casualties that would be considered catastrophic by coalition standards. Technology is irrelevant. Humans have fought wars with primitive weapons. They understand that the soldier matters more than the gun. Give a human a stick, and they will find a way to use it effectively. Time is their weapon. Humans do not fight to win quickly. They fight until they win. Hours, days, weeks, years, they will continue as long as necessary. Other species calculate acceptable for conflict. Humans do not. Coalition, IMPLICAT1S. The Galactic Coalition has maintained peace for 200 years through diplomatic warfare and negotiated conflicts. This system works because all species are rational. All species calculate costs. All species know when to surrender. Humans are rational, but their rationality includes factors other species do not consider. They calculate emotional costs, moral costs, and abstract values that cannot be measured. This makes standard coalition conflict resolution useless with humans. You cannot negotiate with someone willing to die for their principles. You cannot intimidate someone who views death as acceptable. You cannot outlast someone who will fight for generations. Threat assessment. If humanity decided to wage aggressive war on the coalition. Best case scenario, human forces would be defeated through overwhelming numbers, but casualties would be catastrophic. Coalition estimates suggest 100 to 1 loss ratios in human favor, possibly worse. Worst case scenario, humans would never surrender. They would fight using guerrilla tactics, insurgency, and psychological warfare until coalition forces from sheer exhaustion. Historical human conflicts suggest this could last decades. Recommendation. This officer strongly recommends the following. 1. Never engage humans in ground combat. Human advantages multiply in close quarters. Their endurance, pain tolerance, and emotional bonding make them superior ground fighters regardless of technology. 2. Never engage humans in prolonged conflict. Time favors humans. They can fight longer, endure more, and remain motivated longer than any coalition species. 3. Never assume humans will act logically. Human logic includes emotional and moral calculations. What appears to be irrational behavior is actually their standard operating procedure. 4. Most important, never give humans a cause they believe is worth dying for. Humans will fight for abstract concepts, freedom, justice, protection of innocence. If you give them a moral cause, they become unstoppable. They will recruit. They will inspire. They will fight for generations if necessary. Final conclusion. The Galactic Coalition has welcomed many species. We have integrated warriors, scientists, diplomats, and traders. But humans are something different. Humans are not warriors by culture. They are warriors by choice. They choose to fight when logic says surrender. They choose to endure when biology says stop. They choose to die when survival is possible. This is not courage. Courage implies fear that is overcome. Humans do feel fear, but they have trained themselves to function despite it, to fight through it, to use it as motivation rather than deterrent. In 2,000 years, the Empire has never encountered a species like this. We have fought larger species, stronger species, more technologically advanced species, but never a species this stubborn, this determined, this willing to sacrifice. Personal note. I spent 32 days with Shadow Company. I trained with them, ate with them, learned their methods, and I came to a realization that troubles me deeply. Humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. They are not the fastest or the toughest, but they are the most dangerous because they never stop, they never surrender, they never give up. We fight to live. Humans live to fight, not because they love war, but because they love what they fight for, their people, their values, their pack. If the coalition remains allied with humanity, we have the most loyal and fierce friends possible. Humans do not betray their allies. They do not abandon their friends. They will fight beside us until the end. But if we ever become their enemies, if we ever give them reason to fight against us, the galaxy will burn. Not because humans are conquerors, but because humans are survivors, and survival is what they do best. Official recommendation: maintain strong alliance, mutual respect, cooperative defense, and pray we never see what humans are truly capable of when pushed to their limits. Commander Empire. End report. Saved the report and sat back. His claws trembled slightly. Writing it all down had made it more real, more terrifying. There was a chime at his door. "Enter," said. His second-in-command stepped in. The same officer who had been eliminated by Cadet Sniper shot in the exercise. "Commander, the Council is requesting your presence. They want to discuss the report." "I have not sent it yet," said. They know what it contains. Other observers have filed similar reports from the dozen other military academies around Earth. His crest rose. Similar reports. Identical conclusions. Every observer from every species came to the same conclusion. Humans are dangerous. The Council is concerned. Stood slowly, concerned that humans are a threat. Concerned about what to do with the information. Some council members want to limit human military expansion. Some want to integrate human training methods into coalition forces. Some want to do nothing and hope humans remain peaceful. Thought about Captain, Lieutenant, and Shadow Company. Humans are peaceful until they are not, but they will not attack without cause. They are not aggressive by nature. But they are aggressive by capability, his second said quietly. That is what frightens the Council. The Council chamber was enormous. Representatives from 40 species sat in a circular arrangement, took his position at the center where all could see him. The overseer, a tall crystalline being, spoke first. "Commander, we have read your report. We have read all reports from human military observations. The conclusions are troubling." "Truth is often troubling," replied. "Some council members believe we should restrict human military development, limit their expansion, place observers in their chain of command." His crest flared. That would be the worst possible decision. The chamber fell silent, continued. "Humans value freedom above all else. They will fight to the death to preserve it. If you try to restrict them, to control them, you will create the exact enemy we fear. You will give them a cause worth dying for, and then you will see what humans truly are." "What do you suggest?" the overseer asked. "Alliance, friendship, mutual respect. Give humans a role in coalition defense. Make them invested in our peace, because humans are loyal to their friends, fiercely loyal. If we are their friends, they will never betray us." "And if someone attacks the coalition?" another council member asked. Thought about Cadet charging through gunfire. Cadet sitting motionless for 8 hours. Cadet Minu throwing himself at defensive positions. "Then our enemies will learn what it means to face humanity," said quietly, "and they will regret it." The council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. The Galactic Coalition would not restrict humanity. They would embrace them, integrate them, make them partners. And they would spread one simple message throughout the galaxy. Humanity is our ally. Do not attack them. Do not threaten them. Because if you do, you face not just humanity but the entire coalition. And nobody wants to face humanity. Epilogue 6 months later. Captain stood in his office reviewing the latest recruitment numbers. Applications to Seoul Military Academy had increased by 40%. Other academies around Earth reported similar increases. Lieutenant entered. "Sir, we have a message from Commander." "Play it," said. His image appeared on the screen. He looked older somehow, tired. "Captain, I wanted to inform you that my report has been distributed throughout the coalition. Every species has read it. Every military commander knows about human capability. Paused. I thought you should know the result. 3 minor conflicts that were developing have been resolved through negotiation. The parties involved specifically cited unwillingness to risk human intervention as a reason for peaceful resolution. Your reputation has spread. The galaxy is afraid of you, not because you have threatened anyone, but because they have seen what you are capable of. I do not know if this is good or bad, but I wanted you to know, peace through fear. It is not the peace I would have chosen, but it is peace. Take care, Captain, and thank you for teaching me that strength comes in many forms. The message ended. Looked at peace through fear. Is that what we wanted? Thought about Shadow Company, about the cadets he had trained, about the values he tried to instill: courage, loyalty, protection of the innocent. No, he said finally, but it's better than war. If being scary means fewer people die, I can live with that. What if someone doesn't believe the reputation? Asked. What if someone tests us? His face hardened. Then they'll find out the reputation is real, and they'll spread the message better than any report could. Smiled that dangerous smile. You know what I realized? We spent thousands of years fighting each other, learning every brutal tactic, every psychological trick, every way to hurt and terrify each other. And now we have an external outlet. If someone threatens the coalition, threatens the peace, we can use everything we learned. But this time we're united, all of humanity fighting for the same cause. Nodded slowly. The galaxy thinks we're terrifying now, when we were divided, if they ever see humanity truly united against a common enemy. They won't, said confidently, because nobody will be stupid enough to give us a reason to unite. That's the whole point. Looked out his window at the training field. New cadets were running their morning drills. Young people, barely 20 years old, pushing themselves to their limits. Do you think they understand? Asked. The responsibility. We're not just training soldiers, we're training humanity's message to the galaxy. They understand, said. That's why they work so hard. They know the galaxy is watching. They know our reputation protects billions of people. They want to be worthy of it. Received another message. This one from Coalition Command. A request. They wanted human military advisors to train coalition forces in endurance tactics and psychological warfare. It begins, said. They want to learn from us. Will we teach them? Asked. Thought about this carefully. Some things, yes. Basic endurance training, tactical creativity, but not everything. Some things are uniquely human: our stubbornness, our pack bonding, our willingness to die for each other. Those can't be taught. They have to be earned. 6 months after his visit, the galaxy had changed. Not through war, not through conquest, but through understanding. Humanity had shown the galaxy what they were capable of, and the galaxy had decided that peace was preferable to testing those capabilities. In the training academies across Earth, young humans continued to push themselves to impossible limits, continued to train for wars they hoped would never come, continued to be ready for anything. Because that was what humans did. They prepared, they trained, they made themselves ready. Not because they wanted war, but because they loved peace enough to fight for it. And the galaxy, watching from a distance, decided that humanity's love of peace was far more terrifying than any love of war could ever be. Because humans at peace were dangerous, but humans fighting for peace, humans defending something they loved. That was a force of nature the galaxy never wanted to face. Commander had warned them. The reports had made it clear. The reputation had spread. Humanity was the galaxy's best friend and worst nightmare. And everyone was grateful they chose friendship. In his quarters on the flagship, kept one memento from his time at Seoul Military Academy, a simple patch from Shadow Company, their unit emblem. Sometimes he looked at it and remembered those 32 days, remembered the training, the cadets, the impossible things humans did as casual routine. And sometimes, late at night, he wondered what would have happened if the galaxy had decided to restrict humanity instead of embrace them. He was glad he would never find out. Because if there was one thing his report hadn't fully captured, one thing words couldn't quite express, it was this. Humans were terrifying when training, terrifying when defending, terrifying when pushed to their limits. But nothing, absolutely nothing, would be more terrifying than humans with nothing left to lose. And the galaxy, in its infinite wisdom, had decided never to find out what that looked like. The report concluded with 3 simple words that echoed through every coalition military planning session. Don't wake the humans. The end.